Welcome to the Mom Owned and Operated Podcast, the podcast about moms and for moms, where we have candid conversations about running a business, raising a family, and remembering ourselves. I'm your host, Rita Suzanne, a single mom of four, digital strategist, and provider of no-nonsense business strategies and tactics. Hi, this is Rita Suzanne, and today I have my guest Donna on with me. Donna, thank you so much for joining us. I am so excited for you to talk to us all about you, your business, and your family.
Yes, thank you. I'm so happy to be here, Rita, and share. So I'm Donna up in Toronto, Ontario, and my business is Productivity Plus. And I help service-based entrepreneurs know their numbers by leveraging the power of their data. And so we take people from uncertain guesswork to profitable decision-making by looking at what the data is showing and the story that the data is showing about their business. So I'm happy to be here. In terms of my family, I am married and have two teenagers, which we have homeschooled from day one, actually. So that's a side project. But now they're the oldest one has now graduated and is in first year university, and the younger one is in grade 10. So moving right along. Yes.
Oh my gosh. I always say, you guys who homeschool, you are amazing, because it's just not something I just know I couldn't do it. So I just think that it's great, like adding that other factor on, you're a mom, you're running a business, and then homeschooling too. And, in some cases, partner and all of that stuff. It's just got to be so much going on.
It is busy. That's true. But I find we just got to keep super, super organized.
Which is perfect, because that's what you do for your business. And so when we're talking about metrics and numbers, tell us exactly what type of metrics should we be tracking?
Yeah. So to start off, I want to tell your listeners, for those who are feeling like data metrics, no, I think I'll hit pause and come back to this episode later. It doesn't have to be scary. Obviously, the data themselves are number points, but I want you to start thinking about those metrics in terms of answering questions. You have questions in your business like, which service or product is giving me the best return on investment? How are people finding my website? Are people converting from this new lead magnet I made or not? And so the data is just answering those questions. And so when you think about it that way, it becomes less overwhelming and scary, because I know there's a lot of business owners out there who have creative minds, they're visionaries, and they love the content and the service delivery, and not so much looking at the behind the scenes, the operations side. So just know it doesn't have to be as scary as you think it is. Yeah. And when you start with your metrics, I want you to start small. Small meaning don't go into every tool and software that you own and start looking at every data point that they tell you, because you will quickly become overwhelmed and will turn away and not want to do it. And so when you start with like 8 to 12 metrics to begin with. Keep it small and manageable so that you know where you're going. And in terms of what those are, you want that to be a holistic view of your business. And so I like to measure in 3 main pillars. One being marketing, because it doesn't matter whether you're an online business or a brick and mortar business, marketing is part of the game. And so looking at some metrics on marketing side. Finances, because we are in business. This isn't a hobby. And so we do have to make sure we're profitable at the end of the day. And then the third is team or operations. So looking at what services and products I provide and what kind of return on investment I'm getting from them or from my team members.
I love all of that. I can't even tell you how many business owners I worked with over the years. And one of the first questions I would ask them is, do you have analytics on your website? Are you tracking any of your numbers? And they absolutely, 9 times out of 10, we're not. And so we would have to go and set those things up for them. And so I think that it is something important. And, do you suggest that they just keep a spreadsheet, or is there a special tool that you recommend or use? What do you do?
Yeah, good question. So you can certainly start with a spreadsheet. I don't advise it because one, doesn't get done very often unless you have someone to delegate it to, and 2, is not very scalable. And so over time, you'll forget to look at it. That other person may forget to start putting numbers on there. And again, it's not very visual. So if you think about this, would you like to look at a spreadsheet with a bunch of numbers from your accountant? Or would you like to look at a visual bar graph or pie chart that can quickly show you the patterns and trends? For most of us who aren't data nerds like me, we enjoy looking at that visual representation because it's quickly and easy to be able to see those changes. So as an example, we would map out your revenue versus your expenses month to month. So at the end of the first quarter, you would be able to see in a bar chart, this much from revenue, this much from my expenses. And then you can compare that month to month, quarter to quarter, year to year. So it's easy to find a pattern and trend there rather than a bunch of numbers on a spreadsheet. And so I suggest building a visual dashboard that you can then look at. So yes, it's a bit of an investment to build that dashboard and to get your metrics set up in there. But it's one of those gifts that keeps on giving because the data will automatically update in there. And so once it's set up and working, you don't have to do a lot of manual work to keep it going. And you or your team members can quickly log in and see those patterns and trends and then take action.
So I think that a lot of people, like you mentioned, they don't have they're not tracking anything. And how often would you say that they need to start looking at their numbers?
Yeah. So I suggest to my clients, once we have that dashboard built, that you look at it at least monthly. If you are pivoting, if you are launching something new, if you are trying something new, then obviously we're going to look at that more often. And so it could be in a launch, you might have you or a team member looking at that daily just to see what's happening, but at least monthly. And what I encourage CEOs to do is to actually put a recurring task in their calendar to go and look at the dashboard and take some time to take some action based on what those numbers show. Because the truth of the matter is, Rita, the numbers are great. But if we don't step back and think and say, what's this really mean? And what are we going to do to improve, to tweak, to change? The numbers don't mean anything on their own. We have to actually take the action. And so to block off that 30 minutes or so a month and actually go in, look at it, have a discussion with the team member if you have someone in that role with you, and actually take some action on what it's showing.
I love that. I do that. I usually take like the last 2 or 3 days off from calls for the month and just block those two. I know like 2 days, like who needs 2 days? But what I'm using that for is adding all of my expenses to my accounting software. And I'm looking and analyzing at everything and then also planning for the month ahead, just making sure if something is not converting that, okay, well, maybe we need to switch it up a little bit.
Yes. Yeah. And, really, business owners know this because anyone who's decided to do like Facebook ads or something, you're not going to start to set up an ad and then ignore it, right? You're going to have your ads manager or you yourself in there continuously looking to make sure that it's still performing because it can change on a dime. And so the same with your business. I often use as an analogy, we just had summer. And so if you think about, okay, we're going to go on a summer vacation with the family, got everything packed in the car, ready to go. We turn on our car. The first thing we do is look at our dashboard. Do we have a full tank of gas? Hopefully the oil engine light is not on. The engine light isn't on. Those major things. We don't go under the hood and start looking under there because we're not mechanics. But we use that dashboard to give us a quick sense of, okay, my car is ready to go. And the same when we're driving. You wouldn't drive on the highway or the freeway without knowing your speed and your signal and seeing all those things. But we take it for granted that we're actually looking at those. And so I suggest to business owners, do the same thing with your business.
Yeah. So if they decide that they want to try to start to do this on their own, what is the platform that you would recommend that they try to set up or that you use that you would recommend?
Yes, for sure. So a lot of the marketing, metrics that you want to pull from are going to come from Google Analytics. So first off, like you were saying, make sure that you have Google Analytics set up on your website. And right now, make sure you also have their new product, which is GA4. It's going to be released. Well, it is released, but we're going to have to be using that for tracking metrics come July of 2023. So just less than a year from now. And so ensure you have that set up. So it is tracking data from now until July. because Google Analytics doesn't work retroactively. So if I set up today, it can only track from today going forward. What happened last week, it doesn't know. So have those two set up. And then from there, you can pull that into something called Google Data Studio. And so that's what allows you to make a visual representation of those numbers. For anyone who's been on the back end of Google Analytics, it's a mess. It's very overwhelming, and most people don't like to look in there to find the data they need. But once you pull that into Google Data Studio, it's much easier to then see it visually. So that covers marketing.
Well, what
In
are
terms of, sorry?
before we move on, what are the things that you're looking for inside of Google Analytics? Because it's so overwhelming. Are we looking at visitors? Are we looking at like conversions? What are like, what are we looking at?
Yeah, good point. So a couple of marketing metrics that I always like to look at is for sure some top level things in terms of number of users to your website, just overall, how long they're staying on your page. Because if you have a lot of people coming and leaving really quickly, there's something about your messaging. You're attracting certain people, but once they get there, they find they're in the wrong place. So things like that. If you have, 404 errors, you want to be quickly catching those and fixing those links. So those kind of high level stats we want to look at. And then from there, I really concentrate on conversions because it's great that a lot of people looked at your social media post or went to your website. But the truth is, we want those people to either book a call with us, download our thing or buy our product. And so that conversion is what's really important. So we want to know how many people got there, but then from there, how many people actually converted and took the action that we want them to take.
Yeah. And
So
so,
conversions for sure.
right. A lot of people don't know, though, you have to actually add those landing pages inside of Google Analytics in order to track conversions, right?
Yeah. So what happens is when you set up Google Analytics, if your website is all on one domain, so let's say you have mywebsite.com, then you can set up Google Analytics so that it covers all pages that you make on that website. But for a lot of us and a lot of business owners, we're crossing domains. So our website might be on WordPress at mywebsite.com, but then our lead magnet is on lead pages and our cart is on Thrive Cart. And so once we cross those domains, the universal analytics, the analytics we're using now, doesn't cross domains very easily. So we have to bring in another tool to help us with that called Google Tag Manager. Mm-hmm. Once we move to the new Google Analytics, this process is going to be easier because we're going to be able to track person across domains much easier than we can right now.
Do you still have to set up goals in the new one, or do you know?
Yeah, you do set up goals. It's not the same. They're called events. Okay. And so the new one will be tracking based on events. And so, yes, you will have to set up those events, and you'll do that through this Google Tag Manager piece of software as well. So the good part is that it's all Google related, if that's a good thing for you. Right. But it's all free in the sense that there's no extra cost to the business owner with hooking those up. Of course, there's the other side that Google is obviously looking at our information, right? Right. And so some people, choose other routes because of that. But yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Now, so after marketing, we would look at our financial stuff.
Yes. So in terms of finances, when we want to look at like revenue versus expenses, for most of us, that's going to come out of some software, QuickBooks, Wave, something like that. And so what we do there is we pull that data into a spreadsheet that then gets displayed in Google Data Studio in a visual way.
Okay.
So that's where we can get that bar chart from.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then the next thing is operations, and I guess conversions are still in there, right? Or like sales.
Yes. And so this one will really depend on the software and what the business owner wants to measure. For example, some people may have a membership and they'd like to know what's the churn rate, like how long do people stay in my membership before they drop off. And so that will depend on what tech tools they're using. So that one's a little bit harder to narrow down, but there are connectors that we can use to connect certain software to the data studio so that we can pull all of that data in one place without you having to go around 3 different tools to look at the numbers.
Do you find a lot of business owners don't really know what they should be measuring?
100%. Okay. Yes. They know that they should be measuring some, but they don't know where to start. And some dive in and they're like, oh, we're just going to measure everything. And again, get quickly overwhelmed and not know where to go. And others are like, no, I'm not sure what to do. So I'm just going to put a pause on that and do what I do know and what I like doing.
Yeah.
So yes, it's a lot of education in the sense of, what really matters, what really affects your bottom line. I can remember working with a client once, and her target audience was young people who had recently graduated from a healthcare field. And so she was like, I don't know which social media channel they're on. Young people are on every channel, so we should be on all of them. And she had a social media assistant already and was starting to think, oh, this isn't enough. Maybe I need to get a second one. And so I challenged her that and said, well, I don't think that your target audience is on every social media channel. Let's narrow this down, but I don't know where. So I said, okay, let's dive into Google Analytics and let's find out. And so it was really interesting. What we found is that most people were coming to her website from Facebook, but the people who were actually converting, meaning they were, downloading her lead magnets, they were getting on webinars and doing, taking action, they were coming from Instagram. She was hardly getting any feedback from her YouTube channel at the moment, from TikTok, some of these other ones that we think young people are on. And so you don't know until you go back behind the scenes and look at that data. But it was such a relief to her because she was like, okay, I can focus on Facebook and Instagram really as my two target channels. Now worry about the 6 other ones, do 2 of them well rather than, 8 of them mediocre.
Right. Exactly. And I think that that's what a lot of people struggle with. And so it's hard to tell somebody to market in this place when they don't even have analytics set up in there to even look like, how are people even finding me? And one thing that we didn't mention was the Google Search Console, which will like tell the 404s and all of that stuff, but it tells them like the search words used to find them.
Yes. And that's very helpful because you're pumping out content. You may have a copywriter working with you, trying to put out content. And sometimes you're using words which you think your target audience is going to be using to find you. But sometimes they're using other words. And so just having that data and knowing, okay, people are searching this and they're finding me this way. And then you can, adjust your content strategy based on what that's showing.
Oh my gosh, I can't even tell you some of the weird search queries that are coming up under my stuff. But I think that the biggest message is to make sure that you have the analytics installed on all your platforms, because then someone like Donna can go back and look at them and actually gather that data. If you don't have it on there, then like you said, we can't go back retroactively and say, oh, everybody's coming from Instagram. You can't tell.
No, you cannot tell. That's right. Yeah. So for sure, make sure you have both Universal and GA4 hooked up to your website and other tools that you use that you want to pull data from. Mm-hmm. And then the second piece of that, once that's working and you're satisfied, the second piece is looking at using UTMs. And so those are special codes that we add to the end of a URL to help Google know where people came from. And so it's a long thing. You may have seen them before, like question mark, UTM, source equals, medium equals. And so having a strategy and a place for those in what you're doing. So for example,
more about that, please.
Yeah. So for example, let's say you are putting out an organic social media post and you're trying to drive traffic to a webinar or a challenge that you have coming up. And so you're making an organic post, you're also doing your email list. Maybe you're in a couple of Facebook groups where you're allowed to post that type of thing. Maybe you're getting on podcasts and you're, suggesting to people that they can join you there. You want to know at the end of the day, of all the people who came to that webinar or challenge, where did they come from? Was my organic social media post the one that drove most traffic? Was it my email list? Where was it? And so by using these special codes, you're telling Google that person came from Facebook. That person came from my email list. And so afterwards, you can go back and see what really worked for you and what didn't. And so you can really, really drill down deep, so much so that you could even say on the third email of my sales sequence for product X, this many people clicked button 2, if you want to know that, right?
you set those up like inside of Google Analytics, or like how do you do that? Where's that?
Right. So how you set those up is when you are making the link. So in general, if you are making the Facebook post, you might just link to, my website.com webinar.
Mhm.
And so you'd have to put that special code in that link so that when they click it, to them it looks the same, but we're telling Google Analytics, okay, those people came from Facebook.
Is it a different when you make a different one for each platform? Is that what you do?
Oh, yes, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the downside of it, is that, yes, you have to make a different one because your source, where that traffic is coming from, is going to be different, whether they came from Facebook or Instagram or your email, whether it's paid or organic.
Hmm.
And then the different campaigns or the different, advertisings that you're doing are going to have a different name as well. Yes. So I do provide a little bit of strategy and a kind of do it yourself spreadsheet so that it's easier for you or your team to get those UTM links right, because they are a bit complicated. They're not something we normally would type out in English. And
Right.
so it's easy to make a mistake and then the link won't work properly, which we don't want.
Gotcha. I love that because I think that, especially during launch periods, it's super important for people to really see how things are working. And I used to, when I would design websites and stuff like that, I used to tell people like how heat maps are super important. And we want to like check out and see how things are working early in the process. And I love that as a strategy as well, because it helps you really, like you said, drill down and go deeper into the data even further, which is,
Yes.
super
Yes.
helpful. I
Yeah.
think that, for someone like us, we're into this type of stuff, but that's why they hire you to help you, through the process.
Yes, for sure. And again, it doesn't have to be complicated. What we're saying now, someone may be thinking, oh man, I can't do that. My plate's already full. But again, you can get someone to help you set that up. Once
Mhm.
it's set up, you're looking at the pretty dashboard. You don't have to worry about the behind the scenes of how it's tracking that. Right.
Right.
And so, just as another example, I had a client recently that I built a launch dashboard for, like you were saying, so that she and her team could log in and see how the launch was going. And a few days in, she had noticed that the mobile sales were low compared to desktop sales. And she thought, this is 2022. I'm sure people are buying this product off their phones. What's happening? And so we dug in a little bit deeper and we actually looked at the layout. Well, it turns out we missed it. When the person was putting together the sales page, the mobile view CTA button or the call to action button was much lower on the mobile view. And so people were having to scroll before they took action. And so we simply just moved that button higher up and boom, the sales increased from mobile. So it's a simple tweak. But
Right.
someone would say, oh, this launch was not a success. I don't think that product's any good, but it had nothing to do with the product.
Right. And I think that's the important part. That just goes to show how important it is to actually look at all the numbers, because they do tell a story, even if it's one that you might find to be a little overwhelming initially. But I think once you get to get familiarized with that, how it works and how things actually I guess are converting or, working, and even like your financial numbers showing like your sales may be down. Okay. Like you really need to increase your number of, things that you're selling and really maybe go harder in a certain area. I
Yeah.
think that that's something that a lot of times people are not really paying attention to. They're like, okay, my expenses are covered this month. I'm good, you know?
Yes. Yes, exactly. And it could be sometimes there's just a misalignment. You as a business owner make a great product or service, you really enjoy delivering it, but maybe your pricing is off compared to the amount of time and your investment or your team's investment in it. And so just having that and saying, okay, I sold this many, it cost my team this much to actually deliver, it cost me this much. Is this still a profitable product? And if not, where do I need to tweak? Maybe it's just that I offered too much in terms of, how many times I was available for a coaching call or these types of things. And so sometimes just that misalignment we can see and then course correct.
Yeah, I think, and that's something that I didn't used to do either, was really track my time,
Mhm.
because I was like, it takes me too long to track my own time. I get so, focused on this thing, and then I'm switching, and then I haven't remembered to change tasks. But I have been more focused in, tracking all of that stuff this year, because I think that it really helped me to see the misalignments that you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And even where we're spending our time that, maybe is very profitable and we should do more of that and
Mhm.
less of something else, right? And
Yes.
so, and even, we're human beings. We all have time when we're wasting time. All of us have time when we're scrolling social media, but do we actually know how much we're spending on that type of thing? And so just being aware of it, even if you don't do it every day,
Mhm.
even if you did it for 3 to 5 days, a couple of times a year, it gives you a good sense of where you actually are spending your time.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to get my work hours down to like 5 hours a day. So I'm really paying attention to what's going on, making sure that I'm, like right now I'm a little bit over 6. And so I'm feel like I'm making progress, but I'm trying to get them down because, it's like, obviously I need some time off. I
Yeah.
think all of us need that balance that we strive so hard to achieve.
Yeah.
And, and
For
I think
sure.
that.
For sure. And many of us, left corporate or whatever. We started this business for the freedom, for the balance, right? And so no one else is going to keep us in check but ourselves. And so you're right. It is 100% important. Whatever your goal is, whether it's to work 5 hours, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever that is, you have to build it in.
Yeah. And I think that this just goes to reinforce the idea that if you are tracking your numbers, then it's really going to work for you. And, especially once you get the hang of it and really see how to make it work for you.
Yeah, for sure.
So tell me, I like to ask a couple of other little questions. If
Yeah.
your mom came to you and she was like excited to start her own business, would you have any particular advice for her?
Good question. So, yes, I think my advice would be look realistically at where you are in your life right now and where you're going to be in 3 to 5 years. And I know sometimes that might be hard, but if I can think back for myself, I'm in a very different position now with two teenagers than I was, 5 years ago or even 10 years ago when they were little, right? And so, not saying don't do it, go ahead and do it if you want to, but be realistic with your time and your treasure because obviously those children are precious and we don't want to, be working so much that we don't have time for them because they grow up so fast. So being realistic with what your time is and where you can go. Maybe you can only do a part-time thing right now, and that's okay. And as time goes on and your children get older and the demands change, you may be able to move more into a full-time, in your own business role. But yeah, really looking at your time and managing that.
I think that's super important because I recently had a client, and her financial goals of what she wanted to make per month didn't really add up to the amount of time that she was able to work. And so what
Mm,
we did was, I asked her what her goals were, and then we looked at how much time she was able to work during the week and added that up. And then, we looked at her service and the pricing on it, and all the things just did not align. And I was like, there's no way that this is going to work. So, we talked about that, and she made some pivots and adjustments. And so I think that, and she's super happy with the outcome of, what's going on. And so I think that that's a really realistic thing to look at, because a lot of moms like myself, when I started, I was working all the time, like 10,
mhm.
12 hours a day. And my sons were little, they were like 4 and 6.
Oh,
And I was,
wow. Yes.
yeah, and they were sitting beside me and I had my laptop on my lap, and they were just sitting beside me, just wanted me to be there. And I was physically there, but I wasn't really present with them like I really wanted to be, because I started my business so I could be home with them. But I had really just created myself I put myself in a box. And so
Yes.
that's what I'm trying to make
Yes.
sure I avoid, and help other moms avoid too, because it's, like in hindsight, it really is. it sucks that I did that to them. So,
Well, yeah, and then you feel kind of guilty afterwards, right? So I just think, really taking some time to think about what your boundaries are going to be.
mhm.
For example, for us, when we were homeschooling, we had a homeschool co-op that we joined, and that happened once a week in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So, I had to be realistic that that afternoon, no work is getting done because that was a priority for me to go there with my kids. And
Mhm.
I had to be realistic with my clients to say, okay, you can't reach me from this time to this time. I have other commitments. And just being upfront and honest about that from the get go and blocking your calendar off from the get go, or if you like to have your date night every Wednesday, whatever it is that it's important to you, make sure that gets on your calendar and that you're not, overstepping those boundaries. Because if you don't say what your boundaries are up front, people will walk and take what they can get because they don't know that you
Exactly.
have boundaries.
I think that what I see from a lot of my clients is that it's hard for them to enforce boundaries, right?
Mm,
But it's like we'll do one, little baby steps at a time and get them on the way to get their boundaries enforced. So
yeah.
it just takes time, and I think the more you do it, like anything, it gets easier, and so yeah, just do one thing at a time. Turn the notifications off, take the email off your phone or something. But, I like to do like welcome packets that have, these are my hours. And,
Yes.
say that these are your hours. Don't send them an email after hours.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
And even if you happen to be working after hours of choice, though lots of email clients now will allow you to
later.
schedule to send it later, right? And so just be mindful of that and say, okay, you know what? It's Friday night, nothing's going on. I'm actually going to do this, but my client will get this on Monday.
Yep. And I think that that works because if you break the boundary, then they think that it's okay to, and believe me, I've had this happen. I've done it myself. So I'm teaching based on my experience. So, okay, Donna. So the next question is, um, we all, give up a little bit of ourselves when we start a business and we're raising our families. And so, one question I like to ask is really, what are you doing for yourself? Like, how are you remembering, Donna?
Yeah, good question. This was certainly an area I struggled with for a lot of years. Before I started my business, I was an active person. I enjoyed exercise. I enjoyed walking. I enjoyed lifting weights, all that kind of thing. And I, was able to fit it into my routine fairly well. And then I found once I started my business, that kind of drifted off to the side and I was doing less looking after myself, if you want to put it that way. Even though I had my boundaries, I wasn't really building my exercise routine into my week.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I'd have time on Saturday or Sunday, but that wasn't really cutting what I wanted. And so I really had to take a step back and say, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to commit to doing this for my own health and my own wellness. Then again, I need to block it off in my calendar. I need to have set times and I need to stick to it and commit to it. So over time, I've been able to do that. I just gradually, put it in once a week and then twice a week and then 3 times a week as I was going. So that's an area that's been really important to me. I know for other moms, sometimes it's having that quiet time, whether it's meditation or yoga or whatever it is, have a journal or that type of thing. But just have that time, whatever you choose is important for your own self care and build it in just like you do for your family's activities.
Yeah, I think that that's really important. I, like you, thought that I was going to be in the best shape of my life when I started my business, but I slowly stopped eating, the smoothies and the good stuff for me, and exercising regularly because I was so focused on my clients and all of that. So it is so important. Do whatever is going to help you to feel better about yourself. So.
Yeah.
So where can people find you online, Donna? Where are you at?
Yeah. So my website is productivityplusva.ca. And if you go there under resources, I have a 10 metrics that you can start measuring today resource, which may be helpful for your audience who's thinking, okay, I really do want to get started on this, but where? And so it goes through 10, there's actually 12 metrics that I suggest successful business owners take a look at. And so that will help to get you started in terms of, where to start measuring and go from there.
Oh, I love that. Are you on social at all?
I am. Yes, I'm usually on Facebook or LinkedIn. Those are kind of my two channels. So yeah, you're welcome to find me there, and happy to have a conversation.
And we will put all those links in the show notes. Thank you so much, Donna, for being a guest. It's been so exciting to chat with you. I love talking about this type of stuff.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your time.
And there you have it. I want to encourage you to remember that being a mom who runs her own business is not easy. We all struggle, but just keep moving forward and don't forget to make time for yourself. As moms, we are usually the first thing to go to the bottom of the list. If your business is overwhelming you and you need real solutions, not just some sugar-coated suggestions, apply to work with me at ritasuzanne.com/apply.